I'm thinking it's pretty good life right
It's
now.
hard to.
How long
always
my
the hardest
friend's
thing
dogs might get to be.
It's like if you get a new phone, oh wow, this is great, I can use it as a phone.
You use about the third of the apps.
Yeah,
Alright,
maybe-
welcome back
I
to
think
our
so.
work meeting.
I didn't
Wow.
speak at all.
We've got a couple of items to get through still and then a closed. So let's go to 2.4, high-speed internet task force updates. Mike.
Great.
It's more their interest.
So tonight we have two items for the task force to report on and to request feedback from the council on. First one is gonna be a fiber and conduit lease agreement we've been working on with All West Communications. And the second one will be a text amendment, proposed text amendment to city code regarding franchise fees. So first item, All West, this is a result of, we put out a request, or a intent to negotiate, ITN, and requested proposals from qualified consultants or companies that could help us out with fulfilling our fiber optic broadband needs. And so we received a handful of responses, the task force reviewed them, and All West was selected. As we worked through it, we've come to this point where we have a draft lease agreement. And the agreement was in the packet. Some of the highlights of it are All West will own and operate a private fiber optic network in the city. They currently have a franchise agreement and they are operating a network that is being built, and they've kind of put a pause on building right now while this agreement has been getting worked through. Some of the other highlights are that All West, the city will be able to use All West facilities to run some of our city facilities, not to go out and sell internet to customers or anything, but we use it for things like our traffic signals, our entry bases, surveillance cars, things like that. And then we also have conduits in the ground in some places where All West would be able to use those conduits and run their fiber. And that would alleviate some of the issues we've had with installation on park strips or in PUDs and things.
That soil looks awesome.
Yeah, this is a classic Harriman soil picture, more rock than dirt. And one of the other key items is, since this system would be servicing public utilities, it would allow All West to run their facilities in the PUE. So with that, I think those were the main highlights in the agreement. With that, are there any concerns from the council? I've got another slide here, maybe.
We're pretty sure there's no rocks at all in the PV, right?
There you go. So this shows a map that we've shared with All West, showing all the city facilities that we anticipate needing fiber. That could grow as we build and do more things like public works yards and fire stations and things like that. We've tried to anticipate the ones that are currently in the plan, where they're at. But this shows that we'd be looking for pretty broad reaching system. This agreement doesn't eliminate the city from going out and maybe doing a similar agreement with other companies, that if All West didn't service areas like the Cove, if we had another provider up there, we could do a similar agreement with them and accomplish the same thing. So,
Have we identified our conduit and what that looks like and cost savings to them and then cost to us, so it's equals?
yeah, we sent them some information on it. We don't have information on all of the conduit stuff that was put in a while ago, or if it's even usable still. But like Main Street, we know we have conduit along Main Street, we just put it in. And
There's a lot of secondary water then.
Yeah, we do have some dry. Justin may wanna use a lot of those there in the near future, but yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah, and with some new roads, we're planning on putting.
And we're plowing in, are we, like, through Olympia, are they plowing in conduit on their initials?
They have a deal with
Okay.
a private, and so they are putting in conduit, and that,
Behind the PUE.
yeah, it's a separate easement.
It's an exclusive.
that they're running out there. That's not necessarily
We have
open.
access to that, or,
We don't, that's
Okay.
private, but there is an opportunity to go in, you know, in the PUE or.
Okay.
We haven't been having that get put in with any of these road projects. We did talk about doing it on, 7300 West.
And the future.
Fairmont Boulevard, 73 would give us a loop out in that area. So we don't need to light up all the neighborhoods, we just need to hit the key areas.
intersections and
And go by
water gets,
parks
yep,
and
okay.
any water.
Is there contemplation about, like if we do 6400 West, they could come in and either we would put in conduit or they could take advantage of that construction at the same time? So we don't have to come back and tear up a road?
As we do the new 64th to the north, yeah, there's some ideas there.
Conduit's cheap.
So there's no requirement that
Yeah,
it's all everywhere in the state.
relatively.
Relatively speaking, no.
It's always cheaper to put it in hole than anyway.
So yeah, one of the main things I'm hearing then is just making sure that our new roads have 1D conduit in them. And then, as you looked at the agreement, there is a balance sheet at the end, and we'll just have to keep updating that annually. That if they use our conduit, we get to use it, so it's part of the contemplation there, consideration for use of the system as part of the agreement.
What is their plan? Are they gonna build out the whole city?
Kirk is here with All West in the back, so he can answer that question probably a lot better than I can.
Yeah, with access to the PUE, that would be our intent, is to build the entire city. It'll certainly aid us in our construction. We've built already 25% of the anticipated total mileage. So I think we're about 39 miles in already, and the total build's about 153 miles.
Are we allowed any micro trenching?
We do allow it in our standards. All West has been doing,
What would be easier?
We've kind of gone away from micro trenching. We did some in Farmington and Tooele, but we've kind of stopped doing that, and we're doing more traditional directional boring.
Would it, obviously, this is your business side of, the metrics would probably be easier in some of these parts of Harriman as of the soil content, or,
Yeah, there's certainly challenges here, as you guys know. And that's why if we can leverage any conduit, that would be fabulous.
so. Any other concerns with, the direction of the agreement?
who is the provider? Do we have, are you the provider, or is it, oh, okay.
Yeah, we're just, alls we would do is
Just
the
access
accessing
their-
the route.
We could have fiber, we could use a different provider, we could use All West to provide on this, we would have access, we'd have fiber in the
Okay.
network that we could access and use.
And then do we have, would it be like our dark ring fiber where it's only city
It would only be city.
thrown?
Yeah, the agreement specifically says we can only use it for our facility.
Are we looking at having any public access to open fiber in public parks or any of that?
I would hesitate to do that, there's a lot of risk when you do that, so. This would just be for city functions, that's the intent right now.
And that is, it keeps in line with the public utility portion of that.
And, Judd, you reviewed this, you feel like it
It's a win-win.
has a perpetuity to it in case, you know, All West becomes owned by another entity or something like that, right?
No, yeah, I reviewed it, I'm comfortable with the language.
Okay.
We did have the language in there to have, city has first right of refusal on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
system. If
Is-
All West chooses to sell.
Is there any issue at the Capitol coming up with any new laws or restricting or permitting or, I mean, that's your crystal ball
I mean, once
time.
the taxpayer association finds out we're doing this,
You don't have to finish that sentence.
There's always that risk.
Yeah.
I know, Fillmore's running a broadband bill this year. I think it's geared more towards Utopia than anything, but.
Yeah, they're trying to,
But yeah, there's risk. I think it's pretty minimal risk, cause where we're only servicing city facilities, I don't think that the legislature would want to prohibit city utilizing fiber or fiber companies to help us with that project.
So the next steps would be, making sure we have any comments from All West, tidied up in the agreement, and then bringing it back to council
And we've already went to RFP and they're the ones that we picked or solidified all the check boxes.
Yes.
We don't have any other issues of other contractors coming in and we picked a winner, right? Okay.
Nobody else wants, well, there's others who wanna come in, but they
But
don't wanna.
not do the same
use us as-
project, right?
Yeah.
Well, and this agreement does allow us in the future, if there's a part of the city we want to get to that they're not in and somebody else is in, we could just enter into an agreement with that group too.
Okay.
Again, we're not providing a service, we're just using it as a means to
highway.
get to our stuff.
And overall cost savings from doing our own that we can't do anymore. I would definitely base, okay.
It's cost savings on both sides.
Yeah, I figure it's gonna save us about 60 million.
Oh, geez. I could buy a public safety building.
Alright, well, that
No,
one will be
we
coming
can't
back.
afford that either.
I'll bring that back at a future city council meeting, probably not the next one, but the one after that.
It's like my wife's shopping man. Any money saved is money because she spent.
Free money.
Yeah, it's free money.
Item 2, maybe, there we go, is a proposed text amendment, and this is regarding franchise fees. See that, I tried to make it as clear as possible, so in the, I guess, what do we call it, italic font, that's the change. The black font is what's existing, so currently, providers are required to give 5% of their gross receipts to the city as a franchise fee for being in the right of way. That cost covers our expense for having to work around the utility and work with road cuts and expenses dealing with that. We have been approached by Google Fiber to consider possibly a text amendment. Text amendments have to be initiated by council. This one would be a little different.
Or a property
Council
owner.
Or a property owner. And so this one would take the 5% out and turn it into a negotiation with council.
Is that
So,
5% in our franchise?
That's the proposed language there, and we're just looking for feedback on this. If you wanna proceed with it, maybe alter it, or not proceed with it at all, so that's looking for direction.
Let me give you a little bit of context too. We just recently changed our ordinance about a year ago. So telecommunication providers under federal law pay a 3.5% tax on gross receipts. Cable companies pay a 5% tax. And there's really nothing that talks about internet and broadband. So we stated in the language that if you fall within the other category, whatever that means, whether it's broadband or otherwise, then you pay the same as cable, the 5%. Google's argument is that, well, we would be paying a lot of money because we're gonna be issuing, servicing broadband everywhere. And right now, the way the law is written, if a telecommunication provider comes in and asks for a telecommunication franchise agreement, oftentimes they may offer telecommunication services, but then they're also offering broadband and not paying any taxes on broadband whatsoever. So Google is saying that, well, how is this fair where we're paying, a 5% on things that other people are providing and are not paying for? So that's why I think that their language is, let's try to negotiate to figure out a fee. They said that they're not even close to paying 5% anywhere in the country, let alone 3.5% that the telecommunications pay. I know just within the community, they pay between 1% and 2%. Now, the council has a lot of discretion both on this text amendment and even if the council passes this text amendment, the ability to negotiate that franchise agreement. The reason why we stuck to the language that we did is because there's a federal law saying that we cannot discriminate between providers. And it's really easy to say, well, the fee is the fee. Now, with broadband being an unknown currently, there's FCC orders that are coming through the pipeline regarding broadband. But it takes a really long time for federal law to change and to be updated, especially when it comes to technology that keeps changing. Who knows what else is gonna come forward. That they think that this is a reasonable solution. So, to me, I'm
with the language that they're proposing, I don't necessarily have any issue with it because it does leave negotiations up to a different date. Meaning that there's gonna be a franchise agreement that's presented to you and what you feel comfortable with. But that's,
So, let me ask two questions. What does Xfinity pay in franchise tax for their cable
They're
services?
cable, so 5%, right?
uh,
I can't remember if it's 5 or 6.
Okay. What about Comcast? I mean,
Century.
CenturyLink, sorry, US West, whatever they're now,
3.5.
3.5.
They're telecoms.
There's
So I can't find a compelling reason to be anything less than 3.5 for sure. But if we've already got providers in the city that are paying the cable rate or the other rate, can you guys think of a good reason why we should do that?
I can't. I just think it's simple. I think that at some point probably they'll figure it out and they'll come back and say, here's, thou shalt do this.
Here's the federal law. that
Here's the
says-
federal law, but
Yeah.
until then, I think that we're well within that. And I think it allows us to diversify our portfolio a little bit on revenue.
The point was made of the cost that we incur,
Yeah.
right, when they dig into roads and everything else.
That's the
It's
part
the
that.
future costs, yeah.
Yeah, the future cost of the trenching, right, you know?
You'll fix a water line, you gotta work around fiber.
there's no more time.
But this isn't saying we can't be at 5%, this is just saying it.
Yeah, but it introduces the idea that
We can go a lot
we
lower.
could do a one-off for every other provider, right? We could charge some providers 5%, some providers 1%, right? And I don't like that idea that,
Well, where did this text amendment request come from?
From Google.
Google, so we don't even have to entertain it, really, do we?
There's you have legislative discretion and such request.
I'd
I
love
think
for
the
them
one-
to enter the marketplace competitively as the others have, but Sherry's made this point a million times that it's not our job to pick winners and losers and give somebody an advantage over another.
unless they were, providing a service to the municipality. You know what I mean?
It's like, come and play ball with everyone else, there's the rate.
But Google Fiber would come in at what, 3.5 then, right?
They said that would probably be a stretch, but I think that's on the table. And so they would be paying the same rates as possibly telecom.
They'd have to offer telecom though, too. Like,
Well,
Voice
no,
over-
Not
no,
if we change this for them, right, we could negotiate it.
Right.
To Steve's mind.
What do you CenturyLink's 3.5?
Yeah,
And
but
all what's-
Xfinity is,
Xfinity's
Six.
cable.
It's 5.
Five?
They're cable.
and what is the All West agreement, franchise agreement, is that 5?
3.5 under telecom.
Cause they're telecom,
Got it, okay.
their main source was.
That's what I'm saying,
telecom.
so I think 5 is high, I think where true internet, true just fiber is, to be fair, is 3.5.
Xfinity's 5, right?
But they're cable.
Just the cable part.
Yep.
Not.
That was
not-
their initial,
What are
but now they
paying
offer
for
phone,
For their broadband, 0, because they're paying.
yeah, but now they offer phone service and internet and all that other stuff.
Well, the
right.
same with Google, if they wanna come in and offer a package, then they can just go in 5%.
They won't though, they'll go to 3% cause their main service is telecom. You can't charge them twice, so at least that's what we can't do right now.
Right, I
Yeah,
So I'm not, I know enough with telecom and cable to know the basics. But I also know with the technology that's changing, every company's looking at internet and then they're providing cable services through the internet.
Other services, yeah.
Right, they're not offering
Yep.
a traditional, you buy a subscription, you have a list of channels, it's
Yeah.
the YouTube TV.
the streaming.
So, which, again, it's going back to federal laws are having a very difficult time keeping up with all these changes and all these nuances.
They never will.
landline has 20. You get a telecom
Right.
line, you know?
Yeah, the point of singularity is so close, it's ridiculous. We had this discussion the other night, it's like, we got away from cable TV and Dish Network cause it's $65 a month. But then you got Hulu and,
Streaming.
yeah, you add that up and you're paying $120, you're like, what the? Yeah.
So does this allow us to negotiate between that 3.5 and 5 then? By going to this
It allows
language, then-
negotiation, not us between anything.
'Cause I can see arguments for 3.5 and I can see arguments for 5.
Well, I certainly can't see an argument for 3.4 or less.
Correct.
I can't see an argument to argue about it, I think that we should have a policy.
I don't like the open-endedness of
I agree.
Have a
negotiating.
policy and stay with it.
If you wanna change the policy because of the factors stated in the industry, one is 5 and one is 3.5 and others are 5. If you wanna change something, then others are 3.5, cause that's closer to what
That's,
it
yeah,
actually
what I
fits.
was
Yeah.
If
suggesting.
you wanna change it, I'd be fine changing it to the others are 3.5, because
I'm
that's
okay with that
consistent
too.
with
Right.
their competitors.
Yeah.
So just change this to, instead of doing negotiated, say, put it at 3.5%.
Put a number on there, because we know the complications of this room, but when we change seats, unless there's history, they're like, oh yeah, we'll negotiate 1%, no, it's like,
It should just be a policy and they can come back and change
But I
it.
wanna
So
make
really
sure we
what we
don't-
would come back with is none of the red stuff, it would just be that
It'll be
change 5 to
3.5%.
3.5.
Yeah, we would
Unless
leave
it's
5 at,
updates.
cable at 5, and then
Cable
put
at 5,
everything
yes.
else, the other category with the telecom at 3.5.
what,
Yes.
so, question for clarity, why was cable set at a higher rate than telecom? Do we know?
It's a federal law.
Lobbyists.
They're probably.
Better
The,
lobbyists.
the
Well,
Taxpayers Association.
So I can
No
tell
good
you where
internet.
the 3.5 came from, because when cell phones used to come out, people still had landlines, so they felt there was an undue amount of revenue coming in, so that's why they slashed
Okay.
telecom to
So they-
3.5,
Were
because
they
they
all at
didn't,
5 in the beginning?
They were all over the place at the beginning.
yeah, I can't remember, it's been 3.5.
Well, and then the
Most of my
feds, the
career.
federal government has some rules on telecom that also come into play, whereas, and in cable was this unique,
They got picked on at 5% then because
No doubt.
if they
And-
came in
and
and
it
were
was a-
mandated, they have to go everywhere if they were in your city,
so
then
the
they have to do
franchise
it.
agreements then required them to go everywhere, but they were also protected, right? Their rates were set, they could go through, they were subject to the public utilities. They were this weird animal until and now that competition exists, because you didn't want a bunch of them in your street, you only wanted one.
And
that
technology
is one of
changed to where that cable.
But yeah, now,
Yeah.
now Glass is competing with coax, you know, so.
Which is frankly, I think we missed the boat, is that we have glass running everywhere. We probably should have thought, hey, we need to control this, at least here's one corridor you have to be in. But right now, it's all over the place. I think it would make sense to do what you suggested, put other at 3.5
So-
and call it good.
Cable is at 5 because we can and everything else is at 3.5.
Yeah, that's the max that we're allowed under federal law. You can always go lower.
Do you do, is this satellite pay franchise?
No, well, they're,
Well,
the franchise is
Dish
because they're
Network
in
or-
your street, they're using your right of way.
yeah, they have to use your right of way. And I
If
don't
they're
know.
satellite, they wouldn't, unless they
Well,
have
is
something.
it, is
I think
it
it
more
is.
costly for us to have cable in our street than it is to have?
People have internet through
I
that
mean, I'm
stuff.
just asking,
It's DirecTV
should
or
everybody
whatever
be
it is.
3.5 or is it more costly for us to deal with
What do they
cable?
call that?
No, you can splice a cable line quick, and even telecoms, you can splice pretty good. Fiber, it's not quick.
Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, I just been paying. This is an area of the law that needs to be updated,
Yeah, for sure.
but nobody will.
This money went out.
It's not-
Yeah, I'm good with the 3.5, I just don't want it to have a let's argue
I
about
like
it.
this
Then
negotiation.
they
Okay.
close it, it's fine, fixed it.
Thank you for the feedback on
We're gonna
that.
start building right
direction,
away
so
as soon as we get through.
those are my two items. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay. I can leave, cause I have to sit through this on Tuesday.
Well, we gotta do the legislative update as well. Which one? do we
PMA.
do the,
Oh, yeah, and then we got Todd's lovely
Oh, we got a
Well,
comedy routine.
slideshow, yeah.
Annual comedy
I heard a
routine.
lot of grunts there. I find it offensive.
I'm so excited.
I hear
hope
it from
you have
him
good
all the
slides.
time, but from everyone else?
Well, I hope you had
hey,
good
it's
slides.
2025, I don't think you can be offended now, so.
And you should believe everybody else.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
2025.
We're just looking forward to your good
How to
slides,
do it
any
for
kind
the-
of fun memes.
You have 3 minutes.
Mosquito board and
Do we have the
No,
little,
too bad you can't just have a check mark and be
we can
done.
just pull him off stage?
Don't you have a taser?
I do.
Then what would Todd do?
You should remember that, Todd.
But his taser stops
you have
working at
the-
4 o'clock.
Oh, that's right. Union break.
union break.
Alright, we are here for our annual open and public meetings training. We're gonna go through just a couple items, but first. Even the happiest place on earth has a city hall.
That's pretty cool.
You can see my daughter there. We just went this past Monday. So I saw that on the way out and I'm like, I gotta take a picture. I'm a nerdy city guy now. So, So as you know, public policy requires or states that your job is to conduct these conversations in a public meeting, open and deliberate in front of the public.
Unless you're in the legislature.
So public
Such a
meetings,
hypocritical, it's-
and I wanna emphasize this, I do this each year, that all meetings are open to the public. A meeting is defined as a quorum present and a quorum is a majority. I know you all know that. However, why do we keep training on this? Well, maybe it's this. There are so many open and public meeting violations around the country monthly that councils keep getting in trouble because they're violating it. So,
But do they knowingly violate it? Probably.
you know, I think part of it is ignorance. And the other part is maybe they are doing something that they know that they shouldn't be doing.
I got sucked into that by city council.
Dude, it's about ready to time.
Well, can you bring me back a Xanax? So,
Wow, that is.
No, just keep going. This will have the same effect.
so, in looking at all these articles, the biggest violation is the closed meeting. So, you know how to go into closed meeting. Recently, Jackie and I, we put this sheet together, and this sticks to the code to a T. And after we did this, I found out that North Logan has a case, I don't know if it's currently, but it was recent, it was within this last year, where they went to closed meeting.
Wait, there's a North Logan?
Yeah, I know. And
That's where the RSL facility is, North Logan.
so they went into closed meeting, they went to talk about a litigation issue regarding a certain property within North Logan. And then they got a grammar request for all conversations, including the closed meeting. And when they went to closed meeting, they didn't state where it was gonna be located. They called it an executive session, which is what it used to be called in the code, but then they changed it to closed meeting. They didn't follow the exact requirements under code. They got sued. The district court said, well, you went into a closed meeting improperly. Everything you talked about there is now public. So this is Matt Church was representing North Logan, and so they did a motion to reconsider, and I don't know what the outcome of that motion to reconsider is, because what they talked about was proper. It was within the categories of going into a closed meeting. So, but you can see that there's problems even with the minor details of, I'm going in a closed meeting. So, what can happen in a closed meeting? So Jackie records closed meetings, except unless it talks about like personnel related character competence, health of individual, or security or personnel devices. These recordings may be disclosed by court. So even though I think you feel a little bit more free speaking in a closed meeting, understand that that may not always be the case. So you cannot vote in a closed meeting, and I love how they put in the code, unless you wanna get out of closed meeting, then you can vote. Which is like, well, how would we do it if we couldn't vote? Any discussions where you are giving direction, or maybe you need to make an approval, if you have that discussion and you need to make a vote, you go out of public meeting, go and make that vote in an open session.
It's like severance.
And this last one's a big one. Items that are discussed in the closed meeting need to be confidential. They are both protected under GRAMA, but there is, unless you give direction on, hey, the city manager, city attorney can negotiate these terms of this contract for the purchase of this property. Otherwise, everything that happens in a closed meeting needs to stay within a closed meeting. So, these are the reasons why you can go in a closed meeting. I know you know each of them, they're listed on the sheet, but I do wanna talk about two of them in particular. The two that probably come up quite frequently that have some nuances to them. First is when you're gonna purchase property. The second one is when you're selling property, and there's a little bit differences between the two. So when you purchase property, if it's gonna relate to a development of land owned by the state or the city, that if that public discussion would disclose an estimated appraisal value or give you problems competing the transaction on the best possible terms, which is probably always gonna be the case, then you can go into closed meeting. But that's just when you're purchasing property. When you're selling property, it's a little bit different. That you can go into a closed meeting if, like buying property, if it's gonna disclose the appraised value or prevent you on competing a transaction at best possible terms. But then there's two additional requirements that I think we often overlook. One, that the public body previously gave notice that the property would be offered to sell, and that the terms would eventually be disclosed in the public meeting. I noticed an article just recently where Salt Lake County went to a closed meeting to talk about buying a building, what was the Oracle building, or what was it, Overstock building?
Overstock.
In Midvale, I believe. And they went in a closed meeting, they came out, zero discussion, vote approved. I'm still waiting on the lawsuit on that,
Well,
but
that was tough.
it was very concerning when I read that. And maybe there was more discussion behind that, but when I was reading the article the day after it happened, they didn't reference any previous meetings where maybe that was disclosed. So anyway, these are the two big ones, I think.
Was there discussion before they went into closed?
No, and they went into closed meeting improperly, by the way. Cause why do I know that? I listened to the meeting cause I was super curious. So, communications and emails, this is another place that I see a lot of articles come from. And this stems from the definition of quorum and meeting. So anytime that you're together, and communicating about something related to the city or city policy, it needs to be noticed. So, like we've talked about this before, beware of meetings before the meeting, meetings after the meeting. It's real easy to get caught up, to have three talk about the vote that just happened, even though nothing's really gonna change. But just be cognizant of that. And you're really good about it. But I think it's always a good reminder. Group emails. Nathan is very good at this, where when he sends out an email, he BCCs each of you. So that way, it's not a response of, well, now you're talking about public policy and now you're gonna be talking about something, or deciding something before you even have it at a public meeting. So if you are gonna, and typically this is more of a staff thing where we're looking for feedback, especially with me, if I need to tell you something, we try to BCC you so that way we don't have online collaboration. Social gatherings, as you know, is not a part of it's not a meeting, and by chance, things that happen where you run into two people and you, but if you start discussing public policy, you need to do that in an open meeting. So, and be mindful of, the code says one thing, but there's also the public perception. I think the public generally I want a transparent, open, deliberative process to happen before a vote happens. And I know that the council is cognizant of that because we were having a lot of work session meetings where we were having these long discussions and then going into public meeting, several meetings later and having a very short discussion. It doesn't mean that it wasn't all discussed in an open meeting, but I think you made that change at the request and so that you can show that the public who is listening and involved that yes, we had this discussion in an open meeting. It was just a regular meeting. It wasn't in a smaller room, that sort of thing. So this one comes up from time to time where you'll use your personal emails for communication, but be aware that can have significant consequences, meaning that they're going to be subject to grandma, regardless of where they're being held. If it's public business, if it's on your personal account or your work account, then they're going to be subject to grandma. And failure to disclose that is going to have potentially pretty significant consequences. So what I've seen people do is if they get an email from their personal email, because it's a neighbor or something, you have a good relationship with them, they'll forward it to their work account and then respond that way. And then they can delete it from their personal account, no big deal. life is much simpler to do it that way. So, and we need to keep a record. We have a retention schedule that Jackie keeps track of. So all these documents need to be retained for a certain amount of time, and we want to ensure that we're keeping to that retention schedule. So always be mindful that, that these cases do come up. I think I presented this last time. The Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance sued Kane County because of a perceived that there were things happening behind closed doors. And part of that perception likely stemmed from they were making votes without having very much discussion. So there's a quote, I'm not gonna read it. This one's always my favorite. I'm gonna use this forever. So in this case, let's see, it's between these two people, these board members, where it was during COVID. A parent was very concerned about what the COVID policy was gonna be. And then the board, without any discussion, and she had been attending all the meetings for months, waiting to see what the board was gonna do. Well, the board made a decision and didn't involve the public, didn't have any discussion, and she was like, where did this even come from? So then she did a grammar request for all the communications related to this issue. She actually did several grammar requests because I grammar request her grammar request and got all of her information. And this made the news partly in because this lady said to the chair, or maybe it's the other way around, I need to leave at a certain time. And so this discussion cannot go later after this time. Well, in the grammar request, they were required to give out all their communications, including text messages. And that's where we see this. You promised me that you would essentially end on time. You effing promised me. I effing hate you. F you. I'll never trust you again. This is embarrassing. So be mindful that your records, whether they're, and one, there's a law that says that you cannot communicate between each other during a meeting anyway. That this just looks really bad. So, and then this guy, Nemekla, he was left out of the communication emails where they were talking about these issues. And so then he was questioning and met with the media saying, I think the Open and Public Meetings Act was probably violated. I didn't even know this was going on. So, and each year we talk about ethics. Now why? This, and this. Ethics is another one where you're gonna see a lot of articles, hundreds of articles each month.
Utah, Alabama.
So, conflict of interest, what is a conflict of interest? It's defined in Utah code that it's relating to compensation. Whether you're receiving it or you're benefiting from something somehow. So we have two conflict of interest in code. One is your annual disclosures. That if you have any business or you do business with the city, you disclose that. But the other thing is when something comes up and you help on that item and you're gonna benefit from it, then you need to disclose that verbally before the meeting. And then I believe you have to do a written thing afterwards. So after stating your conflict of interest, Utah code strangely does not require you to recuse yourself. I've always found that curious, but in my opinion, it is good practice to always recuse yourself if you have an actual conflict of interest.
Does that require you to leave the room? Planning Commission has started leaving the room.
It doesn't, but I've seen it in all, because there's really, Utah code just says you declare it and that's it. So you can still vote on it, you don't have to leave the room. I think there's the perception aspect of it, that if you leave the room, someone else presents it, everyone up there knows that you have a conflict of interest, and they vote accordingly, then I think that's the safest bet. But as You know, Ryan was here last time, I pointed out that Sandy City Council Planning Commissioner Shoup, who now works for DAI, did that, and he did it properly. But the article still came out saying that, well, there's clout between the planning commission and the city council. So of course this is gonna get passed. So it's, Yeah.
No, he's with Blue Line, he's not the AI.
so he worked with Ryan for
Worked
something.
with Ryan on design.
Yeah. So, yeah, there was a lot of things about Ryan last time I gave a presentation, so.
It's fine, like, I don't know.
So, gifts is probably a question that I get every few months, so I just wanna go over some reminders.
Is it GIFs or GIFs of the enunciation?
Gifts.
I'm just joking. GIFs.
Utah code also requires us to put the council's conflict of interest disclosures
On
on
the
their
website, yep. Yeah,
That's the
so,
annual ones though, right?
yes, yeah, so all the disclosures are on the website.
Now you gotta disclose all those bags of money showing up.
So I'm just gonna summarize, I don't go word for word, but you cannot accept, solicit, or seek a gift of substantial value.
Ridiculous.
They do not define substantial value, by the way. But they do have a definition for substantial economic benefit tantamount to a gift. They don't state what, like a number, what that means, but you can't accept it. If, and there, that is an if, the thing that you're receiving would influence you, according to like a reasonable person standard, to do something improper. To discharge you from your own duty. Or the thing that you're getting would be a reward for an act that you did. And again, this is the reasonable person standard. So it's not what internally you feel, it's what the person in the audience probably feels.
Do a lot for the garbage.
And then the last one, or I haven't ever seen this come up, and it has to do something with being a donor or lender, so I'm not gonna get into it. Then what we tend to always focus on is the $50. We always remember the $50. And that's this doesn't apply if it's under $50. So let's say, for example, that you are presented with jazz tickets from someone that you know that does business occasionally with the city. They don't have any current pending applications, their last application was a couple years ago, it's someone that you occasionally hang out with. So can you receive that gift? And let's say it's $1,000 because it's awesome seats and it comes in the Toyota Club and you get some amazing food. And so would that be an issue under this section? I heard a what?
Yes.
Yeah? I don't know.
I don't know,
So it has to
But it's
be,
perception, right?
there's the perception.
Well, you could,
But-
yeah, be safe, you might not.
Technically, what does the code say?
Someone you hang out with, it's not someone that is doing business currently with the
But
city.
has done and potentially could do business.
I would see how close that relationship is. Do you go out to
Yeah,
dinner
right.
do you couples?
Is it a monthly thing, couples?
Yeah. You know, is this hey, I couldn't go and you're my friend anyway, I'm gonna give these to you. By the way, it's your birthday, happy birthday. But if it's yeah, I saw you last year, and it was, at another meeting, and it's someone that you don't talk to very often, and you know that there's likely gonna be coming something down the pipeline, even though an application isn't in the pipeline, then I think you're teetering on that's not proper. I think you're always gonna get the perception argument though, so be cognizant of it, but
Is that the middle one there? The thing would be a reward to a public official, that's the reasonable person
Yeah.
standard?
yeah,
It's hard to,
You could say,
No, I don't think so.
I have a high school friend who lives here occasionally, does stuff with the city, ran into him, we hang out periodically, I was like, oh, do you wanna go to this? Yeah, I can, I'm not gonna go, just because I'm worried about that.
and you don't really wanna ever have a perception, or even internally, of being beholding to somebody. It's like, it always feels like they have something over you just in case, it's like, just don't go there.
So,
That's why I never do the lunch thing.
Exactly.
I had an issue come up a couple years ago where, the ATV guys were doing a big thing out in the desert. They invited
Oh,
me to
yeah.
come. And I said, well, I'd love to, I just don't own one. And, somebody who supports their organization said, oh, you just use mine, like you'll be fine. But to rent one is a couple $100, right? But he let me use it, it was great, we had fun, took the kids, had a great day. I've never talked to the guy again. And so I had asked at the time Chase about it, and he said, well, you're not wearing your city council name tag all the time. Sometimes you're just a person going out taking a trip, right? And so
Well, do you
kinda
trust
get-
anything that Chase says?
Not
I mean,
anymore,
look where he's
not
working.
anymore, not anymore, but
And I
I'm
hope
just
someone
saying from the
saves that and
standpoint
sends
of,
it to him.
I mean, I think it's probably appropriate to err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
But just because somebody gave you a jazz ticket or you went to lunch is not, if you suddenly departed substantially from like historical voting record or something like that, I could see it, but I mean,
I don't know, but the scenario,
It'd be a
if it's a
lot.
$150 seat rather than a $1,000 seat, that's a lot different.
So all of my neighbors are my constituents. If they offer me jazz tickets, they're my friends and neighbors. And am I violating this because I'm buying votes? Right, or if I'm giving them something, like there's a reasonableness thing here, right?
Well, and I think this is gonna be limited to applications that come before you or
jazz
have
tickets aren't
been
as
in
valuable
front
as
of
they
you.
used to be, right?
So I would be less worried about the constituent argument than.
Now if I see a building permit show up, right, and I get a phone call next week, hey, can you help me out with that?
Or they get a citation.
Yeah, if the tickets are
No.
attached to the building permit
Right.
application, that might be an issue, right? Yeah.
That's why we lock the chambers before meetings now, if they can't put anything on the dice.
There's just a lot of common sense to this stuff. It's overlooked, but.
Yeah, if you ever have questions, you know, you can ask me and I can give you like an official
Todd,
opinion.
I'm on
of-
tracks headed to the arena.
Yeah.
Can I go to the game?
And it'll likely start and end with it depends, so. One that comes up is publicly presented awards, and an exception is political campaign contributions, so. That,
Of course that.
tis the season.
I know. Or, if you're a state legislator, none of this applies.
Any kind donation. Yeah.
They can fly you across the world for a special trip. That's not influencing you for anything.
That's just
You can have private meetings all you want, and that's okay.
I believed in you, so.
Such a
I have a
hypocritical
question
law.
for
They
Jack.
had to
So
follow the same law.
Many of us are on, related to this, many of us are on other boards that also require this open public meeting act.
Yep.
Are we sending this over to them?
So,
Do we
If
need,
you guys, if you
I-
request it, yes, I do send it.
yeah, I think we can
Yes,
create
please.
something and send it
They've
to
asked
those
it.
boards, because
I've
I know
usually-
like Beck is always asking for something official.
I usually just send approved minutes, because it has attendance and that it was conducted.
We do ours anyways at the improvement district.
I'll forward you
So,
Cindy's email asking.
I need several of them. Plus Godfrey or whoever presents us. Just as fun as Todd.
He's probably funny.
Are you serious?
Ask chief.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's do 2.7 legislative.
I'll say nobody else's trains are as good as yours.
I didn't see any
I
So-
would agree.
shop on there,
The
though.
ones are horrible.
As you know, the legislative session just started. What we're gonna try to do is, limit our non-policy legislative, discussions to what we think is the top 5 that you need to talk about. The first one is HB 88, that's housing policy amendments. Ward and Fillmore are the representatives. This bill mandates to allow detached accessory dwelling units. As you remember, internal dwelling units was a requirement put on cities just a year or two ago. So this one is now extending it to external ADUs. This restriction would not allow any deviation from standard setbacks as it relates to the single family home. And this would apply only in detached single family lots, not attached. But yeah, you wouldn't be able to change the lot lines if.
You charge impact fees?
Nope.
Ridiculous.
Um,
Adding cars,
so
What's the
Water.
bill?
I think we need to have a
HB 88.
HB 88.
Just think of that impact, I understand that, sorry, the housing part, but for those that are involved there, impact fees and the infrastructure cost associated with adding those people to those existing systems is a real deal.
So it didn't state,
Unless it's just moving.
unlike internal ADUs, it says that you can't regulate the size. It doesn't have any of those restrictions, on it, so I guess in theory, you could restrict the size of the external ADU. So that way it maybe has less of an impact on the system. It also didn't talk about parking, which parking has been a big discussion this year. I would imagine that if external ADUs are permitted, that both of those issues would be addressed in future legislation. The second aspect of the bill would require municipalities to permit modular home in residential zones. So it was a one-liner thrown into the bill that I don't know was really discussed or vetted. We kind of,
Or prefabricated or.
it's modular according to another statute which allows for fabrication off-site.
Okay, yeah, I'd be,
In any residential zone.
there's some amazing things coming out.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And then allow ADUs on top of that.
Modular is different than manufactured.
I think that
Yeah.
the challenge is there's just not enough detail behind what is
Yeah.
the unit definition.
Same, it's very broad.
Well, they have the definition modular in the other statute, but it's just prefabricated off-site, so that's pretty broad.
Because the panelized
Panelized
construction
or
is
the
pretty-
Connex tilt-ups or what, the box homes, there's some pretty cool stuff.
So direction on this when we're having our discussion, because the league, like with you, they reach out to staff all the time. What can be some response to it? Is there anything that would, because this is what they're always looking for too, is there anything that would make the bill better if something can be proposed as a counter proposal?
Negotiation points.
So we met with Candace last week. Todd wasn't able to be here for that because you were up at the records committee, I think.
Yep.
And the mayor wasn't able to be here for that, but I think this is one of the bills that Candace said they were struggling with in the House. So it may not make it that far, but still,
And we talked to
something
her
to keep an eye on.
today.
But Senator Fillmore was not a co-sponsor on this at that time.
Which is interesting, cause never bothered to mention that either.
These are both on the same bill, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, so 88,
Oh, the two.
I think just to the point, I think there is some really good manufactured kind of housing components that really have a role, but clarification on that, what are they meaning by that? So I don't wanna say no to that, not understanding what they're.
Assembled on site is that's the difference, right?
Right.
A modular home is like Legos. A manufactured home is a trailer. that they
It's
just
two
bring-
pieces,
Yeah,
but you could assemble that on site though too.
or one or three,
Yeah,
you know.
triple wide, we've done some of those.
I think there's some concerns about single-family detached on all residential lots due to like lot coverages over time, that if it's allowed anywhere, it's allowed on the 2,800 square foot single-family detached.
Basically,
lot.
it's a bill to just tell cities,
Double your housing.
yeah, don't do,
What?
you can't stop us from
Still
doing
have to
it.
be setbacks and.
Well, yeah, tell me about the
standards and
setbacks, we
all
can't
those
adjust the
sorts of
setbacks, so
things.
they have to maintain the setbacks or?
They would have to comply with the setbacks in the zone, meaning that if a home can't go there, then an ADU potentially can't go there. But you could reduce them, and there might be good reason to reduce them. Like,
We
I know
reduce it for a
St.
200
George-
square foot shed, but you
Yeah.
can live in a 200 square foot
Right.
building.
So I think all those things would apply. in
St. George and
ordinances
Washington
codes
go
and things.
crazy.
And I'm not opposed, never have been opposed to detached ADUs. What I am opposed to is ignoring their impacts on the system.
But then you talk about general plan and zoning. What does this do to our zoning? It increases density tremendously.
But
It
don't worry,
trumps
all we
that.
need to do is increase taxes, it'll be fine. And that'll really help with affordability.
Well, we're not gonna receive any taxes from this building.
You get your
You
your
get the
sales tax
property
from the
tax.
person and the property tax on the value, but my issue is the effect on, so when you build something new, right, you're paying impact fees, or the PID, right, is paying for the impact on roads, water, sewer, et cetera, so As long as those things are taken into account, if they're gonna build a new building there that impacts that existing infrastructure and puts strain on it, then there should be an impact fee to that.
Unless those
Parking is
people are-
huge, right, so they have to, and maybe that's an ordinance thing, is they have to allow us to be able to put that in our own ordinance, that it has to fit our parking standards, right? Not just because there's room for that ADU, even with setbacks and
That's
stuff.
another bill.
That doesn't mean the lot is situated as such, you could add another parking space off the street.
Or access point, or,
Right.
yeah.
No,
That kind of
seriously,
stuff.
there's another bill, they're gonna remove parking.
What, that makes sense, like those,
Those are the things the board has hit to, is those exact points.
Is it this bill or is it a bill from last year where they were talking about, because this says allow detached accessory dwelling units on single family detached lots. So is that selling that lot to that person that's living in that ADU?
No, it's like my house where I'm attached
Didn't
homes
they
or
talk
attached
about
houses.
that?
I could build a garage, I could build a garage.
Seattle's doing that.
Oh.
I can build a
don't know.
garage with an apartment.
I don't think this bill is.
It's one of the cities is
Okay.
doing it. It's-
What-
Okay.
So,
Can districts still do impact fees? Say the improvement district?
No, nobody can on these ADUs.
How are they running laterals? Water and sewer and.
So an internal's easy because it's already in a structure that's already exists. These externals are, it's gonna be a question, are they just tapping into the existing home
So I met
somehow?
with the sewer district, or
Or-
about it with them.
The improvement
Some
district.
of them are running the sewer lateral into the existing home and through it, but
That's almost impossible in these builds.
it gets a little tricky with sizes, and then some of them are actually tapping in if you have room to get by the house. But if you're on a 4,000 square foot lot, you're gonna have 5 feet or less, probably 4 feet to get down the side of the house with it.
And the data showed that the cities that have done this, because there are cities that have done this, big cities, you're only seeing 4 or 5.
Yeah,
I
you're
really
not
don't think
seeing a
this is
lot of
gonna-
these,
Cause it's not that easy, there's all
On the
these
half acre
complications,
lots or the
it's-
1 acre lots, I can easily see this.
I've seen in other communities of work that did this, I've seen the garages start to be converted over. So it does
Mother-in-law,
exacerbate
attached
your
garage.
parking.
But I can see this in
But-
St. George and Washington and those rental Airbnbs, those.
Or near
It's
the
at my
university.
Or new, yeah.
Look at the development, one doing the
You could do
crescent
this
piece,
at your house.
wanted to build the
Yeah.
homes with everyone had an ADU.
Yeah.
but
Internal.
Probably couldn't stop that. No, it's an
Internal.
external, he had an external ADU on every property.
so tell me if this is
It was an
accurate.
Internal.
Internal,
Yeah.
that's right.
The council is okay with a detached ADU concept if the municipality is allowed to, restrict size, height, parking, et cetera, and would allow some sort of impact fee for water, streets, sewer, et cetera.
Yes.
And I think last time Councilmember Orr mentioned services like garbage services.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, garbage is another, because it's like, okay.
And how that's
Get their
addressed,
own, or-
because they need their own can, or if they're,
Yeah.
Street lined with garbage cans.
Well, you'd have mailbox and residence and secondary addresses and.
Yeah, I think
Please.
the hard thing is that they really only have a place in on certain units.
So it could be in certain zones, I know we talked about that.
This is all about housing affordability.
Exactly. Well, it does,
Impacts, mailboxes, none of that stuff matters.
it does help with affordability.
This is gonna make houses cheaper.
So as written, we don't support it, we've got some things.
The second part is, manufactured is okay, as long as it's not the mobile home that's coming and being placed on site, it's,
1972.
you know,
As long as it's
panels that are being constructed off-site and then being installed on-site.
As long as you don't have attached
What
wheels that you have to detach to park.
That's the difference.
Actual
Permanent
And adhere to building
foundations,
code.
yeah.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, there's really cool stuff that's like the walls
doing
kinda like
HB90?
snap together and stuff.
That's my next one.
Yeah,
Unfold it. You can get one on Amazon for 19,000 that unfolds and it like literally just
Yeah,
poof,
well,
poof,
they
poof,
do
the
that now
walls
with
go up and
concrete.
stuff and
Yeah,
and it's done in like
yeah.
2 hours and the whole house is
It's like I
built.
spent $500,000 on that
It's
machine.
really cool. It's like $19,000. You can buy it on Amazon. have
They
it
build
delivered.
subdivisions down in Arizona
freaking
that,
cool.
that is track.
Like
And it's every 4,000 the same.
Okay,
It's
let's
pretty
keep
much-
this, sorry, I'm gonna keep us going, sorry.
HB 90,
let's go.
zoning amendments, also by Ward and Fillmore. This bill requires municipalities to allow family dwelling lots on at least 4,000 square feet, regardless of the size
Of the home.
of
The
the
next
home.
part is the kicker.
It permits housing as a permitted use in, commercial zones.
Yeah, and so my question back to him would be,
Pursue
does he
what?
understand the state tax law? Does he understand that that's how we're trying to get revenue into our city, is preserving some commercial?
About making houses less
And
expensive.
does he understand
That's all they're gonna do.
that we
All
had
of this
these
is gonna solve it.
conversations with him while he was here and he never bothered to mention that he was supportive of that, even after all of our conversations with him? Ugh. Sorry.
Does he have an education bill?
This was pretty unanimous.
So this one is a no on housing and commercial uses. There's so many arguments on planning practices
It's so
and, you know,
bad.
your-
Just the premise of that makes no sense.
Yeah.
We have separate zones for separate purposes. We want to make
Now we wanna
a
turn
cross
commercial
purpose
into
of
residential.
permitted use. That makes no sense.
What about the first part of allowing single-family dwellings on lots?
So would that be the maximum size of a lot you could require?
Yeah,
4,000
It
square
says
feet.
yeah.
So
And
that's
again,
minimum.
Again, it's about
essentially
planning.
8 units per acre.
Again, it's planning, and then what about roads and infrastructure, is he gonna give us a whole bunch of money to
Well,
beef all that up because we have density that we can't afford infrastructure for?
the problem
Well, I
is
think we'd have to do a calculation on impact fees
This-
to-
Say this
This-
one's a no all the
But the
way.
thing about
Right.
that is that first part is it basically says now all zoning is 10 units to the acre.
Yeah, on any
And they're
kind of
gonna-
On
property.
any property, like
On
that's
any
ridiculous.
property.
About 8 by the time you put
But
roads
we're
in.
gonna
Yeah,
butt
yeah,
heads.
still.
Yeah,
That's a hard.
the discussion you had today, what should we do? Well, it wouldn't be,
Good discussion.
wouldn't
Well,
have
they're
been
going to
27
implant.
units, it would have been,
The state should just
8
take
times
over
15.
everything, and if that's the case.
I think that's what they want to do.
So no one knows.
We're just gonna turn it into the United States of projects.
I don't think this one will go anywhere.
Okay. I think this is the
We
more
still need to
difficult
make
of
sure.
wards bill.
Yep.
I think the other one, there's maybe some opportunities for it to get
I think
moving.
At the house, man.
Consensus was this is a dead
Get out of
bill,
committee.
Yeah.
but it's still, it's
Still, we gotta watch it.
ridiculous.
HB 30 is Utah Housing Amendments by
37.
Dunnigan, or 37, thank you, by Dunnigan. This bill introduces two new planning tools for municipalities in the general plan section. So, one of the planning tools would allow for a residential density overlay, which is defined as 8 units per acre with flexible housing types. Not gonna get into the nuances of what those flexible housing types is. The other tool is allowing affordable housing density, which is also defined as 8 units per acre.
is this the one where they said 5,400 square feet per lot?
I don't think so.
Because one of them, they say 8 units per acre and then it's 5,400 square feet per lot.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
the lot size, yes, there is a lot size requirement on here.
Like 6, that's okay.
Yeah.
So the affordable housing would be, if it's 8 units per acre, 4 of those units if you require owner occupancy. But if it's gonna be a rental project, then it needs to be 6 of those units need to be affordable rental units.
You can see the direction of the.
So the reason why that this is a tool in the general plan is there's another section in like 523 that allows that if you utilize this tool, then that accounts for your moderate income housing requirements. So there's a moderate income housing section in Utah code that states that you cannot condition property unless this, and this. They add in another exception if one of these overlays applies. So that's how the mechanism works.
What I don't like is that, having seen this for a number of years, is they introduce it this way.
It's the nose in the
And
container.
then there's an incentive to use it, and then there's a mandate.
Is this what Cam was talking about today?
Is this the jaw bill? Or is this is not, this is Dunnigan's?
To designate
This is
anything as
Dunnigan's
I don't think
rental
this
does
is a
not
job
make
till
it
2 weeks
No.
out of the end of
2
session.
weeks to the end of the session.
It's
So
the
these
opposite.
concepts, I think, are gonna keep coming back.
Yeah, cause this is kind of the overlay.
It's
Oh,
all-
yeah,
This
we
one
need
did come out of
mega
committee with
recession.
favorable recommendation
Shut all these
before
people
the
up
session
real fast.
started. Came out of this political subdivisions committee, of which Dunnigan is the chair. And I feel like he's getting a lot of traction in these committees.
Because it's voluntary, you do not, it's an opt-in, you don't have to apply it.
It's just
It is
it's just
another tool
It's the
for
problem.
moderate income
There's a
housing.
carrot, next legislation session, it
stick.
will not be.
I think Jared has a very valid concern of it comes out as a voluntary tool. And then it becomes, well, now you have to, in your
Nobody's using it, it's
housing
just
plan,
plan, so now we're gonna make
you
it.
have to have one of these, so, but we can't, but I think the concept of providing more tools in the toolbox isn't a terrible idea.
But do we need it, I don't know that we have to have it all legislated to there either, just, we have toolboxes. We have to have them create every tool in our toolbox.
Yeah, cause I
There
think,
were
I think this council's already done some
Yeah.
unique things down with the MDAs down in Wasatch that.
Let us just let us buy our
The
own
example they gave
tools.
today is you could not go into, if it was a currently zoned for something like that, you cannot require, even by MDA, anything, they were talking about that board, something, you can't require that. So this would give you that tool that you
Can't
could.
require what?
You
Like
can't.
Moderate income housing for,
Oh, yeah, you
Or
can, you
deed
can
restricted
condition the
homes.
housing, yeah.
Just
So you
anything
can't,
to-
you can't require be owner occupied, is that
Correct.
what you're referring to?
Correct.
This would allow you to require it to be owner occupied.
Yes.
A certain percentage of them.
What prevents me from buying a townhouse or condo and then turn around and rent it out
That's another bill.
myself?
See,
Is
it's,
it
I
deed
bought it
problem.
and I bought it and I lived there, but
it
then
just
I decided I
compounds.
wanted to rent it out and I moved
And then,
somewhere
and then
else.
who is gonna
Follow up
enforce and
Yeah.
that's the problem with these bills, it's just,
Just,
they
that-
just.
that's what I'm
Occupied
saying.
versus non-occupied fence.
So-
Same thing's been going on.
So I'll tell you-
gonna do it.
I'll read the section where this applies. So there's a section in Utah code called moderate income housing in the land use regulation portion. It says a municipality may only require the development of certain number of moderate income housing units as condition of approval of the land use application if they enter into an agreement or there's incentives for the applicant. So this adds another section saying that, or they apply for this overlay, whether it's the affordable housing density or the other one, so it is just giving one more tool in this very limited toolbox. Cause I think what was happening is, yeah, you can come in, but we're gonna require 20% of your units to be affordable. So then they made this law saying municipalities can't require affordable housing. Unless those two
This seems
exceptions
like
apply.
an
None of that makes
antithetical
sense.
bill to the other bills,
Yeah,
Yeah,
right?
none of them make
it just
sense.
keeps compounding the problem, I just think, I go back to what we were talking about at lunch today, it's like, just stop.
Wait, how many of you were there?
Just Lauren and Nathan and
It was not a public meeting, we had our.
we were talking with Representative Virtue about, can't we just maybe stop for a few, it's just all adds on to that, it just makes everything
There's
much
no
more
data
complex.
showing anything has been effective.
We had the same conversation when she was here about
Yeah,
push pause, let them get through a year or two and see what policies have changed.
I think the best counter argument to the proposal is you can do this right now in a written agreement.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
come in and you allow for more density and have a requirement from the city saying that 4 of the 8 units need to be owner occupied, you could do that right now. I think this is just for the entities that aren't creative in that,
Solution looking for a
I
problem.
think that's the goal of this bill.
The tough thing is, a lot of these cities
Well,
are built out, it's those
it's
cities that aren't built out that are
force
gonna suffer.
People to
Yep.
eventually.
yeah, it will turn to.
That's what all of these things are
I just think that,
geared towards.
You'll
It's
see
not
Pace and.
But I think you're right,
Mexico and
that's
all those
the
places.
thing
And-
is
and-
why, what prevents anyone from doing that right now?
Yeah.
we don't have to
nothing's-
target
A lot of people.
the
do. It's
number
gonna
of
be-
buildings
This is a
passed this year,
pathway
we
to
don't have to try
Reinforce
and
it all the way
exceed
down,
it.
it's gonna be
It's
forced
forced
houses.
So guidance on
Touch
this
'em. They used
is
to be in touch, but.
Not
are
necessary.
not, don't like the concept, like the concept with
It's
conditions.
nonsensical.
Unnecessary legislation. Move to the next thing that's important.
Well, the next one's very important.
The next one is SB 152,
I didn't mean you, I meant that.
local land use regulations by Bluen,
So wait, repeat that title of that bill,
local, this one?
Yeah.
Local land use regulation restrictions,
okay? And this has to do with,
They're gonna
garages.
restrict our local entities.
So,
garages.
right now, we are restricted on what we can require for 1 and 2 family dwellings. They are, and this is where those design and architecture and all that stuff comes into play. So now they are adding a section saying that we cannot require garages for 1 or 2 family dwellings.
You're joking.
Where are people gonna put all their stuff?
Well, we have too much parking, we don't need to park in our
Or
garage,
their
so we don't need a
ADU.
garage.
Their cars don't go in them now.
Well, then they have to make another provision.
Can we convert garages to
That is
ADUs?
nuts.
I mean, goodness gracious.
You guys would be surprised though too, how many cities voted to be okay with this.
Yeah.
But no potential for future garages, cause that's how they built in the seventies and eighties.
Because there's a project in, where's it at?
Is that Farmington,
West,
Nielsen,
West
or whatever?
unincorporated Weber County. He's getting all the praise from everybody because he's building these homes, no garage, has a spot for a future garage,
Okay.
but still no, they don't
How
have to
much?
build it, but that's an option. And they sell these homes for $350 on small lots. So he's the savior of affordability.
2,000 square
Yeah.
feet, what, yeah,
No, more like 1,200.
Yeah, they're small.
oh, but basement, unfinished basement, yeah.
I don't think they have basements.
That doesn't seem like
Holy
very affordable.
jeez.
When you look at the price.
So,
$400 a square foot?
yeah, holy, no garage, that's affordable.
And the intent is to address affordability, right?
Cause it, cause
Because
it
I
costs
garages
so
affect
much to build
affordability, and in theory, if you don't have a garage, it's gonna reduce the price of the home, and they would,
By about $40,000, they said.
Yeah,
yes.
for sure, and that they won't change, yeah, cause they'll
and
set
they'll
that
have
price.
a junkyard where
I
the
think it
garage.
just goes back
That can't be right.
yeah.
Garage is $40,000
It
so we're
does.
trying to build one for that
See what
price.
those houses cost in 18 months.
Wow.
Yep,
It's just it's just short-sighted, it's again trying to
So
solve
this
a
is
problem,
one,
That
and it's
doesn't
not
that we
gonna
hope-
solve it.
I think our efforts would be best in the House to kill this if it comes out of the Senate, because I don't think.
Well, that's what Candace said, for the ones that weren't here, is like, a lot of bills are going to Senate and then coming to the House with pressure.
But the House seems more
Advantageous for local.
inclined to push back on this stuff than in previous sessions. There's a lot of
There's a lot of
freshmen.
freshmen that are from city.
Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts.
I personally think that this one is the,
Oh, it's a cool one.
like the
They all
league
get
always
politically
says,
ambitious.
one size misfits all. There may be projects that a garage is, not needed, not warranted, or, they have some type of mechanism to account for the parking and the outside storage, that sort of
So
thing.
the Ivory
But
property,
That's just selling apartments.
so the Ivory property.
It's you got a covered parking with no garage, and you got a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom for
covered parking on
1,200 square feet. And that's all you're doing, is you're just selling an apartment.
A detached apartment.
Yeah, it's a detached apartment.
Or you can sell a lot of window scrapers.
I would say, the council would likely be good with this if they can require, a 2,000 square foot detached, storage unit on the property.
There you go.
No, just
Yeah,
so
exactly.
city code or ordinance would allow a Connex.
Yeah.
And they'll require us to allow Connex.
So there's nothing about this bill that works for any type of modification to it. I think it would be too hard to put all the exceptions in there, even if you could think of the exceptions. Okay, so no on that one. Last one,
I think you're at 5 already, bro.
He added one for fun.
Well, I added one.
well, this, yeah,
Bonus
this was a-
round.
It is.
So
Make it a
this
lightning
is,
bonus.
this is just one to be aware of, so the FIZ, this is that amendment
is it?
we've been talking about, the
SB
first
23.
home investment zone that they've talked about using in Olympia, these are some changes being made to it. One of the big ones is instead of being stuck on the county's affordable number, it's based on our zip code, which will change that.
Does that help or hinder us?
It'll, our rates are, our
I was gonna say,
affordability is higher than downtown Salt Lake, so.
Makes it more achievable in this area for our builders.
So that's there, we'll just watch it, but I just wanted, this is one we should probably be watching because I think they're gonna come back and apply, and these are changes to
Are we
the.
trying to attract outside
law.
people
Wonder what the
into our city though,
garage bill number
for these
was
affordable
again?
houses? Like our teachers and first responders and, so their median income is from the
37.
counties.
Which
No,
one?
Blue One
One
is the,
fifty-two.
yeah.
Their median
SB
income is the
SB
county
152.
median income.
It's just gonna make, it's just a little bit higher.
So that's, I don't know if there were any other
So-
issues.
Those were the top 5.
By
We're watching a lot.
West Valley.
What about the one, there's You cannot recall elected officials of the state of Utah, but now there's a law.
Oh, recalling the mayor,
Recall just the
mayor.
mayor.
Just the mayor.
Are you serious?
So,
Nice.
I'm okay, I'm somewhat okay with that, we there was a nightmare that we lived through for a while, not for you.
So I just said, where was this 6 or 7 years ago?
I'm just saying that there was,
Oh,
that was,
gosh.
we were able to structure it so that it
they-
mitigated the impact
Yeah.
to some degree. But our city suffered
Yeah,
because we
tremendously.
didn't have an active working mayor during that time. And so there's
Can
some,
we add representatives and senators to that?
right, but I'm just saying that there is, and they're like, well, why aren't city council members part of it? There is a stigma with a mayor, right? There is a power that comes with just the title.
Yeah.
And regardless of your form of government, there is a power that comes by.
His
Pretty much
head's-
every
his
every
head's
mayor
grown,
is
yeah.
at large.
and,
Well,
and
but think about when you tried to go to the council of mayors meeting, it was like, oh, he's not a mayor, right? And it was like, but because there is this perception of it,
Stigma,
right?
yeah.
that's why
And so it's like,
title.
yeah, and so it's like,
Cog, they definitely
Yeah.
go sit in the corner.
I didn't mean to really bring it up, I just thought it was funny that
We-
it's
it
the
is,
first
but
one. and-
I-
We got a
It
couple other
actually is
titles
based on
for 'em too, you know.
malfeasance, and so we were looking at it, they have to say, here is what they did wrong, they have to prove
Yeah,
show
that's-
malfeasance, so
yeah.
it's not just, I don't like you, you voted against my
Exactly.
project.
Right.
Unless you voted against my project after the opponent took you to a jazz game, then
We clearly proved that you stole money from the public, even though the DA
Right.
didn't wanna
He
prosecute
didn't wanna
it,
prosecute it, not
so we
because
can
there
do
wasn't-
something about it. Yeah, that would
I
make
don't think
sense to
that,
me.
I don't think that there's, and in my mind, it's like, cause there can be a lot of damage done over a long period
There
of time.
was, I mean, it took
There
3
was.
years or 2 years to get back on top of that hill.
Right, and so I
I'm
don't,
just trying to figure out what precipitated this one specifically.
Yeah.
There's another one about city managers that I'm wondering what happened there.
Yeah.
I think it's
Somebody
probably
knows out about that.
the same
The
city
same one?
that is causing both of these issues.
Oh my
I'm not
gosh.
suggesting that's a great thing, but I'm just, it's not, to me, it wasn't super laughable, cause
What
we
is
lived
it?
it.
No.
It's like, ah.
No, this starts with the B.
So if you're
With
keeping
a V, a little
accounts,
south of here.
the bill numbers,
Yeah.
we're at 301 in the House, 155 in the Senate. 456 number total already, and today's the first day.
They're gonna have a record year again.
LPC will be important Monday, we are taking positions on several bills, so
I'll be there.
LPC, a member of the online even.
Continue to pray for
I'll be in person there.
I just wish somebody
Okay.
would run a bill that you have,
We need a
there's
few
other
snow
states,
days.
I talked to Nathan about this, that have this. You can
Max
only
5
run
bills or
so many bills per legislature because it's crazy. It's irresponsible in my opinion,
Yeah.
there's no way you
And the
can,
last-
Like each one should
Yeah.
only be able to sponsor a certain
yeah,
number.
because there's no way you can actually understand what you're voting on because you have no bandwidth to cover that much data when there's this many bills.
Well, and then all the debate and discussion about them are all held in open and public meetings.
Yeah, oh yeah,
So that they can be,
yeah.
you know, all the public's business is done in the light of day
Yeah.
like that.
Okay, let's go to closed,
Where's
Wanna-
LPC
yeah,
at? Is
oh,
it-
yeah, we gotta close and then.
By the way, that was sarcastic in case anybody didn't understand
Look at
that.
his top 5.
I think you said
Does
all the
LPC
time
meet
about
Capitol
that.
on Monday or where do they meet?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
In
so,
the center.
if you wanna meet
There.
here, we'll do it.
Do with that at all.
Yeah.
Unless you wanna
Lobby.
go park yourself up there.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I might be in on that on Monday.
Monty leave?
Yes,
I'll be,
Who's here
I
earlier?
have garbage board meeting and then I'll come up.
no, he's gone.
okay, somebody wanna make a motion, let's do this, I'm exhausted.
Where are we staying?
Steve, you wanna make
They're
that?
staying.
Yeah, you're.
Make a motion to temporarily recess city council meeting to go into closed meeting for the following purposes as provided by Utah State Code annotated section 52-4-205. Strategy sessions to discuss pending or reasonably imminent litigation. And strategy session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property or to discuss a proposed development agreement, project proposal, or financing proposal related to the development of land owned by a city.
Second.
Okay, motion by Terry, Jared,
Yep.
Kenny,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
oh, yes, okay, we'll move into close, we're gonna be here,
Yes,
We need
who do we need?
chief. is one.
chief on the first one.
Uh-oh.
On
We'll do
location.
the the
Litigation.
litigation chief will be here for that one, and then he can probably go home.
Okay.
I don't know what the other one is.
The chief
Oh,
second.
okay.
That's not.
So that's, I think just.
Always get the rest of you.
Chief counsel.
Take care, everybody.
Hey, thank you guys.
Sorry.